Hi-Fi Rush is a harmonious cacophony of raunchy rock and roll and character-driven action. It sits in the rhythm action genre, but that description feels a little disingenuous. It's like slotting Nine Inch Nails into the ambient section of the record store, or hurling the Black Keys in with the rest of the radio-ready indie. Both of these bands feature on the soundtrack, by the way. Hi-Fi Rush works as well as it does because it isn't just set to music, but driven by it. There's a coherence to the way that movement, attack and defense sync with the rhythm. You so rarely see this executed so well in modern entertainment, and filmmaker Edgar Wright's directorial style is a clear influence on the cadence to Hi-Fi Rush's musically inclined combat and the composure of its characters.
Pretty rock star move, Chai.
There's syncopation in the way that all of the disparate elements come together. Attacks should be coordinated on beat, with combos combining to unleash monstrous amounts of damage, heighten your score through each of the stages, and unlock new sections of song to rock to. Enemies telegraph attacks at least one beat before they land, giving you ample time to lock back in with the rhythm and dodge, sprint or parry out of harm's way. Amping up your damage potential builds a reverb gauge, allowing you to unleash a wicked face-melting solos with your makeshift guitar, while a thread of well-timed attacks will let you lead off an assault with a massive attack, a cymbal crash at the end of a phase. This system works as well as it does because Hi-Fi Rush always lets you get back into sync with its rhythm, and Tango Gameworks isn't going to give you whiplash or punish you for failing to find its tempo. A floating cat serves as an ever-present metronome, Chai shifts his weight rhythmically, and the world is constantly signalling the perfect timing. If none of that is enough, quick tap of the view button on your Xbox Series X controller will snap an easy-to-read beat counter to the bottom of your HUD to help you figure it all out. The combat system is slick, and while it fails to expand all that much through the 12-hour adventure, it has strong enough foundations that I always found myself coming back for more. In an effort to amp up the variety in combat and platforming, Tango Gameworks introduces a steady stream of new robots through the back half of the experience, although a reliance on parrying to progress did upend the pacing somewhat. I understand the impulse to include such a system where certain attacks are rebuffed and roadblocks eroded through inputting a specific sequence of buttons. However, this more traditional rhythm action idea felt somewhat antithetical to the more free-flowing nature of the early encounters. It's a small but undeniable misstep, the track you wish you could skip on an otherwise excellent album. Tango Gameworks built its reputation on the back of combat mechanics, the snappy weapon wielding of The Evil Within 2, and the magical gestures that prevailed Ghostwire Tokyo. But the studio rarely receives the recognition it deserves for its world building or writing. That'll change following Hi-Fi Rush. While the story is simple enough as a ragtag group of reluctant heroes assembled to combat corporate overreach and the abuse of advanced artificial intelligence, there's an undeniable quality to the execution here. Hi-Fi Rush has good vibes, and while that description lacks any distinction, it does accurately capture the way that you'll feel while playing. The visual design echoes the hyper-vivid colour palette used to great effect in games like Sunset Overdrive and Jet Set Radio. But Hi-Fi Rush perhaps has more in common with the early morning cartoons that aired in the 90s. It's splashy and undeniably bombastic, but there's detail to the framing of its oversized sequences and plucky facial animations that's difficult to ignore. For a game with such impeccable rhythm, you may not be surprised to learn that Hi-Fi Rush has incredible comedic timing, but I have to say that I was taken aback by just how consistently funny it was. I was laughing out loud during cutscenes, wide-eyed during the larger combat encounters, and otherwise bemused as Chai and the gang shredded their way through the adventure with wild abandon. Tango Gameworks breaks from expectation to release a bold rhythm action game where combat isn't set to the sound of music, but driven by it entirely. With its awesome battles, vivid visual design, and unwavering commitment to comedy, Hi-Fi Rush is an undeniably wild ride that shouldn't be ignored. We give it 4 stars out of 5.
Profession rock star?
Future rock star?